My name is Jeffrey Foucault, and I'm here to give you some basic instructions on how to play slide guitar and an open tuning bottleneck slide guitar, in this case with a brass slide. My friend Matt Ike, who makes resophonic guitars at Mule Resophonic Guitars in Saginaw, Michigan, asked me if I wanted to give some slide guitar instruction. And as a musician on the road about 20 years, who cannot read music and doesn't know anything about theory, I'm uniquely unsuited to tell anybody how to play guitar, but I can tell you how I play guitar, and we'll see if it's useful to you or makes any odds in helping you along your own path with this instrument. So let's start with the tuning of the strings. We're going to detune the guitar into an open D. So if a standard tuning for a guitar is from high to low, E, B, G, D, A, E, which I always remember as Easter bunnies get drunk at Easter. This is going to be tuned down so the E becomes a D, the B becomes an A, the G becomes an F sharp, the D string stays where it is, the A string stays where it is, the low A string, and the low E string is tuned to D. So again, that's D, A, F sharp, D, A, D. If you have a smartphone, and God bless you if you don't, you can download, like some sort of tuner app that'll help you, like a chromatic tuner to help you figure out the note names if you're not a note name type of person. Again, if you're not into learning the note names, basically it's the intervals of an E major chord, one whole step lower. Okay. When you're playing an open tune, there's a lot of different ways to attack the fretboard, but I'm going to start with the most basic way, which is to use the open chord, in this case the D, as your sort of home chord, or if we're using what they call the Nashville number system, the 1 chord. If this is the 1, D, then D, E, F, G is the 4 chord, right? So in this case, the 4 chord will be all the strings played at the 5th fret. Okay, and one more past that is going to be A, because it goes around again when you run out of those first 7 major chords. The A or 5 is at the 5th fret. So open 1, which is a D, and then G at the 4th. G at the 5th fret, which is the 4 chord, and A at the 7th fret, which is the 5 chord. 1, 4, 5. I don't pretend to know much about theory, but I will tell you that many musicians on the road use the shorthand of the Nashville number system because people don't get confused about keys quite as easily. Okay, so those are the basics. If you want to add a fancy touch on the end of something, you can also play the 1 up at the 12th fret, which is all the same notes, just 1 octave above, and if you slide to it, then you can throw in those little flashes of bluegrass genius. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? What happens when you're playing slide guitar, and how slide guitar works, is that you are essentially creating a node on the string, right? Each time you play a string, you are creating a standing wave. So the string is fastened at this end, and it's fastened at this end, and when you play a note, what you're creating is a standing wave in that string. Now, if you remember from high school physics, you can create a node halfway in the middle of the in this case, that would be the 12th fret, would be the middle, but there's a couple other ones, one at the 5 and one at the 7th fret. And what I mean when I say you create a node, you're creating a place where that string no longer moves, and you're able to divide the string up and create a standing wave on either side of the note. So in this case, the D string sounds like that, played alone. If I make a node at the 7th fret by playing a harmonic, which just means I'm muting the string a little tiny bit, I'm touching it, barely touching it, and then I pull my finger off at the last moment, and that allows the string to resonate a little bit harder. What you're hearing in that case is a standing wave on this side and a standing wave on this side. And what happens when you're playing slide guitar is you're able to allow that node to travel along the length of the string using a conductive, whatever, not conductive, a resonant material. In this case, I'm using a brass slide. I prefer brass because brass is a little bit soft and it tends to get scratched up with little tiny nicks and dents and stuff that makes a little bit more whisper and noise when you're playing it. I also like the fairly muted resonance of it when it's applied to a string. You know, you're going to get a different character out of different materials. So some people use a ceramic slide, people call it a mud slide. Some people use a glass slide. Some people use steel slide, looks like this, and you know, some old blues players use the blade of a knife. And what happens when you apply that slide to the string is you're able to move the note up and down. So here's the string, here's the note, if I'm playing a harmonic, and here's the harmonic. Now you hear how that note has some travel in it, has some play in it. That's the emotional content of slide guitar, is the tension that happens when you're not expressing the discrete note that you get when you're playing a fretted instrument, right? You're hearing a little bit of margin on either side of that, and that tension creates an emotional component that I think is similar to when you hear the viola, or you hear the cello, or you hear the pedal steel. Pedal steel is the sound of country music in a lot of ways, and it is that sort of almost weeping sound that I would and have described as sort of lachrymose, but in a beautiful way. Now we know how the slide works, and now we know where the most basic 3 chords are when you're in an open D tuning. The 1, the 4 chord, which is G, the 5 chord, which is A, and the octave, which is still D, but a different tonal expression. And so let's go back and I'll show you how to play the song I was playing when this whole deal started, which was Payday by Mississippi John Hurt, one of my favorite old songs, and it's a song I like to sit around the kitchen table and sing with my 11-year-old daughter as well. So this is a song, if you want to play it with just a thumb and a finger, you can find a way to do that. I tend to use 2 fingers and a thumb. But you can kind of do whatever you want to. Generally speaking, as Emerson said, to be simple is to be great. So try to stay simple if you can. And the notes that I'm playing, the strings I'm playing at this point are just what we would describe in standard tune as the B and the E strings, and which are in open tune the high A and the high D strings. I start on that A, which is your 2nd highest string, and I'm doing it at the 2nd fret. So open, on, D string open, and I start at the 2nd fret with the slide, and I slide up to the 4th fret, and I go. You hear all the sympathetic resonance that's happening in those open strings. So that's why you hear people muting, right? And so most of the time, people who play this way are using the right palm, and they're setting it down on the low strings, and you hear that kind of thumpy sound, that sort of attenuated sound of the note, and that allows you to focus on the notes that you're actually playing, because otherwise you'll get a lot of sympathetic resonance. Now that can be used in a cool way, if you listen to Skip James, he's tuned into a minor chord, and even when he's playing major shapes, you still hear the darkness of that minor fill in around the edges. If you listen to the late great Rainer Potacek from Tucson, he's playing in a major tuning, but he's playing minor chords, and though they are minor, they often sound like they have an element of joy. So, the hell was I talking about? Payday, John Hurt. So we've covered all that. We're playing Payday. I'll sort of play it slow and sing along, right? First verse. Oh, well, I've done all I can do. Can't get along with you. I'm gonna take you to your mama. Payday. Payday. So that's 2 to 4th fret to 7th fret. And then back 9 to 7. Payday. Payday. I don't really think about it. So if I do it in time, I keep my thumb rolling. Well, I've done all I can do. Can't get along with you. I'm gonna take you to your mama. Payday. 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 I'm gonna take you to your mama. Payday. See, big fancy ending. Okay, hopefully that was useful to somebody, and if Matt asked me to do some more of this, maybe we'll get into some other stuff, like starting a song, for instance, not on the 1, but maybe we start a song on the 5. Now the 5 becomes the 1, and all of the chordal relationships change, and that opens up a lot of new territory on the fretboard. But that's enough probably to get you started for now, and I guess we'll see you again next time. If I saw you